Hey everybody, Charles for HumbleMechanic.com, and this is episode 31 of the Humble Mechanic Podcast. It has been a while since you guys joined me in the car. Actually, the fun thing about winter, the sun goes down early, and by the time I get off work and on my way home, it's dark. So, actually off work today, so I figured I'd go put some gas in the car because it's supposed to be pretty cold tomorrow, and shoot a quick video for you guys in the car. Like I said, it's been a while. So what I want to talk to you guys about today is how technicians remember where the heck everything goes when they're working on cars. This is probably like the fourth most asked question that I get when people ask me, you're talking about what you do for a living and whatnot. People are typically asking, why is my car so expensive to maintain? And things like that are usually what fill the conversation. But more often than not, I also get asked, how the heck do you guys remember where everything goes? And so I'm going to give you guys a little bit about how we do that today. First and foremost, it really comes down to working smart, and that's taking parts off in a logical order, keeping them ordered on your bench, either working left to right, right to left, however you do it, it doesn't really matter as long as you're consistent in what you do. Depending on the job for me, I have very certain ways that I do things, so I'll go step by step and I'll do it the same way every time. So for a professional, that's one way we sort of keep that straight, is that we just do it the same way every single time, and you run into less issues. If you're a DIYer, that's a little tough because you may be not doing this repair over and over and over again. So you have to be even more aware of working smart and keeping organized while you work. Another way, and this I did a lot when I was really early in my career, is to label everything. Some really good ways of labeling things: masking tape and writing on it with like a Sharpie marker works fantastic. It's a good way to label things like coolant lines, fuel lines, air lines, so that you get them all back where they came from. We had a guy years and years and years ago that I forget what repair he was doing. It was a fairly big job, and he was fairly new at the time, and he wound up switching the coolant line and the fuel line. So he pumped a bunch of fuel into the coolant, and or it might have been the return line. Anyway, I remember we had to pump the gas tank out because the gas tank was full of coolant. So as you can imagine, that made the car run pretty poorly. So, just put a piece of masking tape around it with a little pigtail on it, and write down what it was for. You could just put a C for coolant, F for fuel, A for air. Anything like that'll help. But the more you label while you're taking everything apart, the better off you'll be, the easier it'll be going back together. That's actually something I wished I would have done a better job of when I was taking the engine out of the cabbie, was labeling what all the electrical connectors were. So really important. Also, using things like magnetic trays. I did a video about my top 5 favorite tools. That was definitely one of them for that exact reason. You can use multiple trays to sort of cover different areas of the vehicle. If I'm doing a really big job, a lot of times I'll have a tray up on the top and a tray for the stuff underneath the car. So if I'm under the hood, I'll have a tray for that. If I'm underneath, I'll have a tray for that. That way, at least those stay separate, and just less potential to get bolts mixed around and whatnot. So that's a way that I use probably more than anything. The other really common way is to use plastic bags or zip top bags or little boxes or little cups or whatever, and keep your bolts and parts sort of organized that way. Plastic bags are great because you can write on them. Cups are great, you can write on them. They're cheap. You get them at the dollar store for $1, and you don't have to worry about spending $20 on a magnetic tray or whatever to keep organized. So plastic bags are another one. When I was taking apart the Jetta that I got the VR6 out of for the cabbie, that was what I used and they're actually, all that stuff's still in those plastic bags. So it keeps oil from getting everywhere too, because I was disassembling the engine. So those 3 are like the 3 common ways that I think most guys use to keep things labeled. There's also using cardboard. I do that a lot for transmission work. If I'm taking the transmission out of a car, I'll cut a square cardboard and just put the bolts in going around just like they do in the bell housing, and that helps out a ton. And you don't have to remember, oh, was this bolt 3 millimeters longer than the other one, or was it the flush end or a rounded end bolt? Did it have a washer on it? Didn't it have a washer on it? You just put them around like a clock and you'll be good to go. Next up is something that's actually pretty new in the grand scheme of things. It's been around for a long time for a lot of us, but that's taking pictures of stuff. Newer cell phones, hell, even older cell phones, take pretty dang good pictures. As of right now, I'm on a Galaxy S4, and it takes incredible pictures. And I know, as we sort of evolve in our cell phone technologies, those are only going to get better and better. But snapping 5 or 6 pictures before you start and as you go, something that guys back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, heck, even in the early 2000s would have killed for. You hear about old timers drawing pictures of a serpentine belt routing, and you don't have to do that anymore. You just snap a picture and you're good to go. That's also really good for things like fuse panels when you're replacing that. There was a recall on Jetta and a couple other Volkswagen fuse panels, and that's what I would do. Even though I have both fuse panels out on my bench and I can just take one fuse out at a time, I would always snap a picture just in case something weird happened and I had to I misplaced a fuse or whatever. I could always go back and make sure 100% that I got all the fuses in the right spot. So super, super awesome thing. Next up is remove parts together. Anytime you can take an assembly off and you don't have to take each individual piece off, I try and do it that way. One, it's less work, less nuts and bolts to take off, generally results in a faster repair. Plus, it's just less things to lose, get lost, misplace, put bolts back wrong, put parts back wrong. If you can take off this much all at once, take it off instead of taking each individual piece off all by itself. Plus, it goes back together faster too. There's a couple of other things that really lend themselves to making things easy when it comes to putting things back together. A lot of times, especially when you're putting the same parts back on, things have a memory of where they've been. You really see this when it comes to engine wiring harnesses, especially. You lay an engine wiring harness out, even though nothing's connected to it, you can usually see that, oh, okay, this connector went here, this connector went here. This one looks like it could go here, but you got to pull it really tight to get it to plug in. And typically, not always, manufacturers don't like to stress engine connectors. So that sort of memory really helps out a lot, especially, like I said, when it comes to the world of wiring connectors. You also really want to be thinking about this disassembly. The way I try and organize parts, and on most jobs it helps me because I'm really organized when I'm putting things back together, but you always have to be thinking about what happens if you get hurt during this job. I mentioned earlier about the transmission thing where I cut a square cardboard and just punch the bolts through the cardboard in, basically like a clock, so that they always go back in the exact same spot that they come out of. Well, there's other guys that can remember, oh, okay, this one goes here, this one goes here. And a lot of times I could too if I really tried, but it's one of those things where if I don't have to worry about this, I generally don't. But, years ago, it was like 3 years ago, we had a guy go out on medical in the middle of rebuilding a Rutan transmission. I got some pictures. I'll put a link to the blog post I wrote about it whenever the heck it was. It was a couple of years ago. And so, somebody has to go back and put all that stuff back together. Well, it turned out that somebody was me. And, I had to sort of weave my way through getting this completely disassembled transmission put back together. On top of that, the guy that disassembled the transmission wasn't the guy that took the transmission apart, or didn't take the transmission out of the car, excuse me. So we had one guy take it out of the car, one guy disassemble it, and I had to put it back together and put it in the car. Luckily, the guy that took it out of the car did an incredible job of labeling everything. It was perfect. I couldn't have asked for a better job. He probably did a better job than I would have. The guy disassembling the transmission didn't do as good of a job, so that was very challenging, and I wound up having to do it twice because I missed a step, and I had to do it twice, which sucked. That was really terrible. That was like the most defeating moment of my career when I tried to put that transmission in drive and it didn't go. And you know, the funny/truth about it is we forget where stuff goes. We put stuff back together wrong and have to do it twice. It happens to me. I know it happens to, I want to say every other tech out there, but I'm sure there's guys that are, you know, insane geniuses that can do it right the first time, every single time, and never have to reroute a cable or, you know, put a different bolt on or anything like that. But I would say the majority of us really do forget sometimes and have to go back and do things the right way. And then there's the hacks that don't do it right and don't go back and do it the right way. But most of us are pretty diligent about getting things put back the right way. There's just some sort of weird feel when something's not right. You develop a feel for it, and you can kind of tell that that's not the right way. So we do have to go back and fix it because we do forget. All right, guys, I think I'm going to wrap it up there. A lot of good stuff. I know I threw it all at you kind of fast. I'm trying to get this video recorded before the GoPro battery dies. What do you do to keep organized and remember where everything goes? Put your comments in the comment section below, whether it's on the blog or on YouTube. You know, if you got any good advice, share it with the rest of us. We all really appreciate that. Don't forget, if you like the video, throw it a thumbs up. You can also subscribe on YouTube or on the blog. Either one is awesome. I appreciate all that. Don't forget, you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you're on the blog, you can check out the YouTube channel. There should be a link to the video as well as the video embedded in the channel. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.